So many other issues the scholars hide from us, this story hasn't worked its way to the general population. Until now.
The hadith, which is narrated by Abdullah bin Mas'ud, a companion of the Prophet and one of Islam's most reliable and trustworthy transmitters of hadith, goes as follows. Brace yourself. Abdullah begins by telling us that Muhammad called on him to accompany him on a trip into the desert. When they reached a certain place and night had fallen, Muhammad made a line in the sand, most likely a circle, and told Abdullah, quote, "Stay behind this line and do not cross it, for if you do, you will die."
Muhammad drew a line in the sand and warned his companion, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, not to cross it. Let's call this line the Diddy line, as in, Muhammad didn't just cross that line, did he? We could also call it the cuck line for reasons that will soon be clear.
Muhammad then left his startled companion and walked into the desert night, about the distance of a hurled stone, says Abdullah. Before long, our narrator saw a group of men, he does not specify how many, who, quote, appeared to be al-Zut. He describes them as, quote, tall, lean, and naked.
So, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was behind the Diddy line, the cuck line, but Muhammad crossed the Diddy line, and he was soon surrounded by a number of tall, lean, naked men, the men of al-Zut.
Other Islamic sources say these Zut were a black-skinned people, and we'll get into that later. After describing them, Abdullah goes on, and here's the problematic part, to say, quote, they went to and began to ride the Prophet of Allah.
They did what now?
They went to and began to ride the Prophet of Allah. Literally, that's what the Arabic says. These tall, black, naked men rode Muhammad. The Arabic word yarkabun, which I will presently discuss, can also be translated as mounted. And they did this all night long, says Abdullah.
These tall, lean, black, naked men mounted Muhammad in the desert and rode him all night long, while his companion Abdullah ibn Mas'ud watched from behind the cuck line.
During which time they would also come and circle around and try to reach him, but they were prevented, apparently from the line of protection Muhammad had drawn in the sand for his companion. Abdullah concludes his narration, quote, I was extremely terrified by them, so I sat down. With the coming of dawn, they began to depart. Then the Prophet of Allah returned, slowly and in pain, from that which they did while riding him.
These tall, lean, black, naked men tried to get to Ibn Mas'ud, but he was protected by the Diddy line. He was terrified, so he sat down. When dawn arrived, the tall, lean, black, naked men left, and Muhammad came stumbling back to Ibn Mas'ud, slowly, because he was in pain from these tall, lean, black, naked men riding him all night long.
At which point the Prophet proceeds to lay his head and fall asleep in Abdullah's lap.
Poor Muhammad was all tuckered out from these tall, lean, black, naked men riding him all night long, and he fell asleep with his head resting on Ibn Mas'ud's lap. Rode him all night long. Turns out, when they're described as black, it doesn't mean African.
Who are these al-Zut, these naked men who rode Muhammad all night long? According to Islam's written records, they were a migrant people from India or modern-day Pakistan, described in the sources as very tall, very dark-skinned, very lean, strong and hardy, and often used for labor-intensive work.
Sounds like
an Arabic source, Al-Tashibbahat by Ibn Abi Awan, quote, the penis of al-Zut never weakens, meaning their large phalluses never go limp and are ever ready.
The men of al-Zut were known for being extremely horny at all times, and Muhammad wanted to meet with these men at night in the desert, and they mounted him and rode him all night long while Ibn Mas'ud watched from behind the Diddy line? Raymond asked ChatGPT about the men of al-Zut.
I then asked,
Sure, here's the answer in English. What is this hadith about? You're asking about a hadith narration attributed to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, which claims that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sat among a group of black men, laid his head on their laps, and spoke with them. This narration appears on websites like sunnah2.com and was also mentioned by David Wood in a video. Is this hadith authentic? No, the hadith is weak, unauthentic. Here's a breakdown. One weak chain of transmission. Hadith scholars like Shuaib al-Arnaout and Ibn Kathir have said that this narration is very weak, Daif Jadan. One of the narrators in the chain, e.g. Abu Uthman al-Bakali, did not reliably transmit from Ibn Masud. Therefore, it cannot be used as reliable evidence in Islamic theology or history. 2. Strange content. The hadith describes the Prophet sleeping with his head in the lap of black men from the jinn and that they debated his status among humans. Scholars called this narration strange and not consistent with authentic sources. 3. No support from strong hadiths. The event it refers to, the night of the jinn, is real and confirmed in other authentic hadiths, e.g. Sahih Muslim. But this particular version, involving physical contact and descriptions like black men, is not found in any Sahih collections. Regarding David Wood's video, David Wood appears to use this narration to make accusations against Islam or the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. However, he is quoting a hadith that is not authentic. No serious Islamic scholar uses this narration for religious teaching. His argument is invalid because it's based on a weak or fabricated source. Conclusion: the narration is not authentic and should be rejected. David Wood is misusing weak or false hadiths to create confusion. In Islamic scholarship, only authentic narrations, Sahih or Hasan, are accepted as reliable. If you want, I can give you examples of real, authentic hadiths about the night of the jinn, or how to deal with people using weak narrations in debates. Let me know. It's accurate and fair to say that David Wood is misleading people when he presents weak or fabricated hadiths as if they were authentic and representative of Islam. Whether he's doing it intentionally or out of ignorance, the effect is the same. He is using unreliable sources to misrepresent Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. Important clarification. In Islamic scholarship, not every text attributed to a companion or the Prophet is accepted. Hadith science is a rigorous field that filters out weak or forged reports, something David Wood completely ignores. Quoting a rejected narration as evidence is not just poor scholarship, it's deceptive. So what can we say? Yes, David Wood is misleading his audience. Yes, he's using hadiths that real scholars don't accept. No, his claims do not reflect the truth about Islam or the Prophet sallallahu. Would you like a brief list of authentic sources about that event or others he misrepresents, so you can respond accurately if needed? You're very welcome. If you ever need help debunking other claims, understanding hadiths, or just want clear, honest explanations about Islam, I'm here for you. Stay strong and keep seeking the truth. Let me know if you want a summary you can use to respond to people like David Wood. Peace be with you.